Yes, not exactly the crew that we expected. Stupidly. Lots of flags. Here we go. First speaker.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Canberra, fellow Canberrans and not Canberrans. Those of you who have travelled in from out west and south, there's a few from Cooma here today, a couple of Jindabyne, and Wade Northhouse from Billboard Battalion. He's probably the sharpest dressed, got a little emblem on the jacket. Here he is. Wade's come up from Echuca. So he's actually been given day leave, maybe overnight, to come out of Victoria stand into New South Wales. He can tell us all the things that we shouldn't allow happen in New South Wales if we want to actually preserve some freedoms. So we do have a speaker lineup. We're going to roughly open with Tony McClellan. Everybody loved her speech last week. And she's actually just waiting for her daughter to get here to watch it. So we'll ad-lib for a few minutes, but maybe Fraser can jump on first. We are pretty casual with the lineup. So the speakers will be speaking for a bit longer today. We haven't had the march, obviously. It's just a rally. We've had a lot of trouble getting reach, getting communication out to explain to people what this is about. The common questions were, why another march? And I've had a lot of people ring me saying, why another march? Well, it wasn't another march, it was a rally. And if anyone missed the conversation, it's because last weekend there were no politicians in Canberra. And this weekend, there's a lot of them in that house at the moment, because from tomorrow morning, both the lower house and the upper house are sitting. And they have a pretty busy legislative agenda, so a lot of them will be in there or coming today to Canberra, reading through a whole lot of legislation that we actually would like them to not pass. That's partly why we're here. So don't feel disheartened by the size of the crowd. It's not the size of the crowd, it's the size of the voice. It's called amplification. And so we have got people streaming and videoing. We ask everyone to share it and put the word around and tag the politicians. Email the link to their offices. Drive them nuts over the next 2 weeks so they can get the message that we do not want digital IDs, we don't want cash to be banned. So we've got a range of topics we'll cover today. Last weekend was predominantly pushback against bulk immigration, and again we've had to explain that again and again and again. We don't oppose immigration, but we oppose a monocultural immigration or a bulk immigration. And the argument we said was, we don't want 1 million Indians as much as we don't want 1 million Yanks or 1 million French or 1 million Kiwis. We are a country founded upon multicultural immigration, and that's what everybody would like to maintain, because that's our cultural diversity, that's our strength. And so we've been mischaracterised deliberately by the media. And who remembers the news? Was it last Sunday night? The Victorian Assistant Police Commissioner, I think he was, tipping a box of rocks out on the table and holding up a big hefty chunk and saying, this was the shit that was going to be thrown at my police by the left. And we walked past the left down at the library. And we got up a bit close and personal with them. They're not coming to my Christmas party. My kids. I've got a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and twin 8-year-olds. They marched with us. They walked past that rabble. They're not motivated to go to uni, but they saw the bottles thrown. And the cameras saw the bottles thrown. And in Victoria, we finally got the police admitting who's doing the throwing. We are seeing the narrative turn. It is turning to our favour. It is turning to We are not the problem. So thank you again for turning up. Remember that we don't have to have 10,000 people here. There's 10,000 people or 100,000 people or 1,000,000 people will watch these videos. They see your commitment for coming here in 100% chance of rain, but nobody cared. Like, we're going anyway. So I'll bring up Fraser and I'll give Tony Stewart time to find some parking. The other speakers that we're going to have, we've got Michael O'Neill, who did a much better job of opening than I did. Thank you, Michael. We've got Bernie back. She's going to recover a lot of what she said last week. And again, we need multiple political efforts. And Wayne's going to talk about with what's going on. He's quite well known now and he's got a strong message. And then there's a range of other people who would like to speak. Some are still thinking about it. If you want to say something, just come over to the side. Come and say hi to me. We're happy to do the open mic. Be brave.
Thank you.
G'day everyone. Thank you for turning out. Wonderful people that you are, because you understand what's going on. You understand the big picture and what we're confronting coming at us. And we know that the global agenda, and we know that our government are just puppets and playing their part in this global agenda. So that's why we're here. And you know that globally they are pushing this ID through, and our puppets up here who seem to know least about everything, we tend to go down rabbit holes and learn things and research things, and they are distracted with so much peripheral rubbish that they never actually investigate, and they never really know what's going on, and they rely upon their advisors to tell them what's going on. Occasionally you get some pollies who do some digging, like Gerard Rennick and Alex Antic, and then they get ostracised and pushed to the side. But we have to unite. And at the moment there's this great division going on, which is quite ridiculous, the left and right and all the rest of it. It's all about communication, it's all about information and understanding what's going on. And if those people last week who were giving us a bit of a hard time, if they knew what we knew and been down the rabbit holes that we've been down, then they wouldn't have been doing that, they would have been with us. So that's what we have to do, is to unite all the people. Now this digital ID is an enslavement system, and everyone is aware of that. Everyone knows that they're going to try to sell it to you for convenience. But the reality is that there is, in the legislation, they must provide a way out, and they must provide you a way around this. It's voluntary, as they say. So I know they don't want it to be voluntary, and they want us to convince everyone that you have to have it. But what we have to do is stand united and be strong about this, and hold them to that and say, no, I am not going to go through that jailhouse door, because as soon as you go through that door, they will close it behind you, and that'll be it. Enslavement for the rest of your life, and that's what they want. So we cannot do that. We must take that opportunity that is there, the law that says that there's got to be a platform for us to step around it and just provide our two-factor authentication or whatever it is to achieve the things that we need to do. They will make it tough, but we are tough. We've been through a lot in the last 5 years. I was thinking, there's about 1% of people before COVID who were awake to the big global agenda and what's going on, but since COVID, there's now 10%. So it's been a tenfold growth in the amount of people who are aware of the big global agenda and what's going on, and that is huge. And they're getting to a point where if we get to 15%, it's going to be massive. And they are pushing back now because they know that there's a big awakening happening, and they are trying to create as much division as possible. We've got to avoid that division. We've just got to unite. And our job as people who are awake to what's going on is to educate people, is to talk to people. It's a tough gig talking to people, and you think, oh my God, how many people? I keep banging my head up against the wall. But then you have a little breakthrough. One person, you think, oh wow, I've convinced somebody. And you go away and go, wow. But what you don't realise is one person manifests, because they'll go home and they talk to their loved ones and they talk to their friends, and they'll awake a few. And then they will do the same. So one becomes two, and two becomes 20. 20 becomes 200, 200 becomes 2,000, and so it goes, because of you, because of something that you did, right? So that's why we have to stand tall on this and be strong and push back. We have to unite. This is the big one. This is the hill to die on. We cannot allow this digital ID to be implemented, because we know that they're pushing hard with the cash, as Andrew said. That's on the table at the moment. And we need to be knocking that cash, keeping that cash alive. There is a bill at the moment. Submissions are being taken until the 31st of October about giving most businesses the opportunity to refuse cash, except for a handful. The big players have to take, the supermarkets have to take cash. But what you have to do is find a network of businesses who will accept cash, and you deal with them. You support them. And to get through this, things might get tough, but we need to stick together. Find your tribe, find your little group of people that support you, and that you can support each other, and get little groups. I'm from Marinda on the south coast, and we've got a group, and we support each other, and we've got farmers markets happening. We're developing farmers markets. We've got so that we can have supplies of food, good produce. We've got a network of healers and health naturopaths and natural masseurs and spiritual healers. All the wonderful people that you could ever dream of, we've got in our group. And so we have a support network, and we don't feel so isolated and alone. And so you need to develop your tribe. And look, this morning I was listening to something, and it was the story of back in 1961 when they did those tests. They were electrocuting people, and they were getting people to electrocute, press a button when somebody gave a wrong answer. It was a test to see if they could get people to inflict punishment upon people because somebody told them to. And as it turned out, 65% of the people who were involved in it, who were responsible for hitting the button to electrocute people who gave false answers, 65% of them press the button to give them a lethal amount of electricity, 450 volt shock, because somebody with authority was standing next to them with a clipboard saying that this is what you've got to do. Now that shows the capacity of people to be influenced. But what they didn't tell you was that in that experiment also, if other people were watching who were going to have to participate in it, were watching, and the people who were told to go ahead and give that shot, and as soon as one of them said, no, I'm not going to do it, then suddenly that 65% diminished, and suddenly 90% of the people wouldn't do it, because one person stood up, right? One person said, no, I'm not going to do it. So the next guy came along and said, I'm not doing it either. No way. And anyway, it was in Romania in 1989 that their dictator leader over there stood before the crowd that he did on a regular basis and gave a rap to the people. How wonderful his dictatorship was going, and how he'd recently just killed a whole lot of dissidents because they were complaining about things. And anyway, people were applauding him, but one person booed him. The hundreds of thousands of people in the streets, he's standing out of a window with his wife, and he's talking down to them, and one person booed him, and he stopped and looked for that one person, and he identified the one person, and he was ushering his guys to go and get that one person, and then somebody else booed, and then suddenly there was boos everywhere, and they just manifested. Next thing, the whole place erupted, and they were all booing him, and they took him out. They took him out, they took his wife out, and they tried him, and then executed him. Bingo, finished. They woke up, they stood up and said, no, we're not going to be party to this. This is what we have to do. We have to be the individuals that stand up and show the others, show the example, be the example.
Yes.
So that's why you're here.
Yes.
That's why you're here, because you care. So well done to you, and thank you so much. And hold your ground on this, hold your ground.
Thank you, Fraser. Thoughtful, deep. I think he's talking about, is that the ash experiments, Fraser? The ash experiments you were talking about? Meldrum. There's also the ash experiments, there's the electrofusion experiments, and there's a whole lot of social conditioning experiments that were worked on in the 1950s. And so they've had a long time to get better at it. There is water over on the table, again, it's complimentary. I made a bunch of notes in the last week. And, again, I was scanning social media for a range of issues that are before us in Parliament. And one of the lines I saw, which was a good one, was, do we patch the past or do we focus on building the future? It's a really good question to contemplate, because I was born in 73, and you think that would have been probably peak civilization. You think about it, going to the beach in the 80s, finished high school, feet plates. We've got an memory that a lot of this music we're playing today, that we were playing in my mate's combi when we went out to walk to the beach around Jervis Bay. Right. We had freedom. No one gave a shit where we were going. We were never asked to pay money to go into a national park. We could camp on the side of an ocean or on the side of a river. We as kids used to pour petrol in the creek and then light it just to see where it went through the rapids. And we'd spend an hour putting the fires out. No one got that hurt. We had a few broken arms. Now, we've got a police drone behind us. If you look around behind you, that's a police drone up in the sky.
Hey.
So give it away. I spoke to Shallow Trail, he's on Twitter, Shallow Trail, the bloke that organised the Brisbane March for Australia. And they had about 10,000 people.
Up there somewhere.
When they were walking over the bridge, the coppers said, hold up,
Let me know if you saw it.
get your drones up and get your photos, get your videos. They were happy for the march to stop on the bridge so that the march organisers could get some drone footage. I see that as a softening of relationship with the police. I've been a bit hard on the New South Wales Police. I'm not going to resolve from that, but ACT, they've actually been pretty good. We had a good week last week, and I think we will continue. They're putting the drone down already, see, they can hear us. They're like, oh, we've got busted, put it down. So, we'll get Tony up to deliver her speech, and we will still keep talking about a range of other topics. Cash, digital ID, UN, and there's a couple of speakers going to appear later today from 2 o'clock over at the rally on the other side. Sparring partner, I've got a few funny stories. Hand over to Tony for the next phase.
Hello everyone. I'm so glad to see people here today. I know it's a miserable day, but the reason we're in this mess is because there aren't enough people who do what you're doing. They don't stand up, they don't come and join rallies, they don't speak out, they don't share stuff on Facebook. And everyone here today in this miserable rain, are heroes. And we need more people like you, and we need to convince our friends and our families that this fight is the most important thing we can ever do, is take the world back that runs us, and create a world of peace and harmony. It'll be wonderful. It'll be wonderful. So I've got a little speech because I tend to be a waffler, and I didn't want to leave anything out. So, we gather here today on the lawns of our federal Parliament House because we're concerned about our freedoms. We're concerned about government overreach and policies that are not in the best interest of Australians. And we want to protect the sovereignty of this great country we call home. I think everyone here understands that something deeply concerning is happening in our country and around the world. The very people meant to serve us, our politicians, are making decisions that are going against the Australian people, including controlling what we can and what we cannot say. I'm here today to talk about the Misinformation and Disinformation Bill, a piece of legislation the government tried to push through last year. The government claimed the bill was to protect Australians from false or misleading information online. They said it was about stopping safety and national security. Our politicians wanted us to believe that their motives were benevolent, but when you dig deeper, you realise the bill was more about censorship and curbing criticism directed toward the government. What our politicians didn't tell us in that bill is that the bill would have handed sweeping new powers to the Australian Communications and Media Authority to police speech online. It would have forced social media companies and digital platforms to monitor us, to delete what they consider false or harmful, and to push everyone who dares to question official government narratives. Now let's look at the definitions. Misinformation, they said, is false or misleading content shared without intent. False information shared deliberately. That sounds simple, right? Who decides what's false? And to the government itself to decide what they consider to be true. So if you post something about government policy, some public servants in Canberra could decide it could cause serious harm, which could result in it being censored. That's not democracy, that's control of the narrative. Even the Australian Human Rights Commission warned that the bill could undermine freedom of expression because it hands too much power to regulators and digital platforms to decide what's credible. And here's something worth noting. Government endorsed treated differently to everyone else. In other words, one rule for them and another for us. When the government gets to decide what is authorised truth, we are one step away from state propaganda. And if you think that this is just about Australia, think again. Around the world, governments are doing the same thing. In Singapore, the Protection from Online Falsehoods Act lets the government label posts as false or takedowns. In Kenya, people have been arrested just for sharing posts that challenge the government. The same thing is happening in the UK. I've heard that 12,000 Brits have been charged with speech offences in 2024. And over 80 countries have passed similar bills and laws since 2010. So even though it's different nations, it's the same pattern, using misinformation laws to silence dissent, punish critics and protect those in power. Just like COVID, governments around the world are in lockstep. This time they're against free speech and anyone criticising them. Is this what we want for Australia? A place where speaking your mind makes you a criminal or puts you in danger of government retribution? So how would things work if the bill was passed? Platforms concerned with fines would start deleting anything that might be risky, even honest opinions. They'll silence ordinary Australians just to stay on the safe side. That's mass censorship, which I believe is already happening on a mass scale. For me personally, I have experienced non-stop censorship for 4 years on social media, and I've been a victim of mainstream media suppression. Because I had concerns about how the government handles COVID, and I was worried about the vaccines because of the alarming number of adverse reactions, I decided to run for the seat of Eden Monero in the 2022 federal election for the wonderful political party. It was called back then Informed Medical Options Party, run by the wonderful man Michael O'Neill, who you're going to hear from soon. I was very privileged to be part of his team. As a political candidate, I should expect not to be censored by social media, and I should not expect to be ignored by mainstream media, but that's exactly what happened. Facebook restricted my posts and mainstream media refused to report on me and why I was running for a seat in Parliament. 10 candidates ran for the seat of Eden Monero in 2022, including Andrew Baylor, and only 2 candidates got media coverage, the ALP and the Liberal candidates. How is that democracy? And then in 2023, I was banned from Facebook for 6 months, where I could not post, and since that time I have been in constant restriction, whereby the visibility of my posts have been severely reduced. How dare Facebook, let me tell you, make my blood boil, other platforms censor me or anyone else. But now I've got some great news. Last year the government couldn't get the information, misinformation and disinformation bill through the Senate. This was a victory for every Australian who values free speech. But we cannot relax, because bad ideas like this rarely die. They just get repackaged and brought back under a new name. And next time they might succeed, unless we stand up now. Because this isn't about social media posts. It's about who controls the truth. It's about who gets to decide what you can say, what you can question, and what you can believe. If the government can control speech, then they control thought. And when people stop speaking freely, corruption thrives, truth withers, and democracy dies in silence. So I say to all politicians and to all governments, we will not accept censorship disguised as safety. We will not accept vague laws that silence critics while protecting politicians. And we will not hand over our voices to bureaucrats who think they know better than the people. The strength of democracy is not in agreement, it is in debate. It is our right to challenge, question and to hold power accountable. And if leaders fear criticism, then they have no business being in our parliaments. So today I say to those in power, we are watching, we are many, and we will not be silenced. So let us stand together for freedom of speech, the cornerstone of every other freedom we hold here. Because when we lose the right to speak, we lose the right to debate and to question. And when we lose the right to debate and question, we lose the very soul of our democracy. So let's keep the light of truth burning, let's protect the voices of ordinary Australians, and let's make sure that no government, now or ever, can take away the freedom of speech. And remember, friends, together we can change the world for the better. So let's do it. Thank you.
I'm going to jump straight into Michael, and I'm going to find a jumper. Hello everyone, very happy to be here, and Canberra has consistently shown us bad weather. I've just come back from, I've just been travelling the world for the last couple of months with my wife Barbara O'Neill, going to Europe, across the Middle East. We've been up there in the USA, and it's been a very interesting time. And obviously when I came back to Australia, I felt somewhat like I'd come into some
very closed environment, and I realised that how far advanced the socialist agenda that's being enacted in this place on us as the people is underway. In fact, I will say this, we had quite an interesting trip. We ended up, have you ever heard of a place called Turnberry in Scotland? Turnberry is a town, and it's on the west coast of Scotland, and it's got a resort and a big golf course, and of course Donald Trump bought it when it was in a state of sad repair for about $30 million. He spent hundreds of millions of dollars, and he turned it into this, one of the most magnificent places. Well, my wife happened to be lecturing there, and we got there, and we were, they were all smiles, and they said, we're giving you Mr. Trump's bedroom. So anyway, I spent 4 days sleeping in Donald's bed. Now, don't go too far with that thought, but we had a wonderful time. But I can tell you, when I was in the United States of America shortly after that, there is a very buoyant attitude. Now, I didn't go to California and New York. Barbara is right at this moment, she's up there in New York, which are very left-leaning states. But when I was down in Arkansas, when I was in Texas, when I was in North Carolina, when I was in Oklahoma, they're incredibly buoyant for the things that are happening in the United States, the rolling back of the laws. Now, we have a political problem. We're underrepresented as a people. We're over... Damn weather. Anyway, we're over-regulated and we're over-taxed enormously, and we often don't realise the level of taxation that we are subjected to. In fact, it's the bane of my life. But look, we have a political problem here in Australia, and I believe it needs a political solution. And when I first got into politics, I used to go to marches. I did a lot of marches, and I did protests mostly down there in Sydney, and I used to realise no one's listening to us. No one's listening to us. We've somehow got to get in there. We've got to get into that space where we give people proper representation. And that was the reason I started the political party 10 years ago, so that we could have representation. The alternative to a political solution is revolution. Now, I can tell you, I'm not interested in armed insurrection and revolution. You have no hope of winning that war. There is no hope. And if you want to see the result, go over to Israel and Gaza and see what's happening. Go to other places where the wrongs have been enacted, and they try to solve the problem with a hostile action. And they will speak to you every time. You'll be whacked into submission. It's not the solution. The solution is a political solution. Now, my thrust at this time is that I would love to see all you people, all the minor conservative parties somehow come together, and that's the thrust of my energy at the moment, where we can have a united force to take seats in this place, to give you representation. And I believe there are people up in this parliament who would, if we were to get our act together and really well-organised and fairly, not in an extreme radical way, that we would have a party that would attract other people like these people that maybe, because they're dissatisfied with the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party has betrayed the very essence of their core values. I read through their values just recently, and it's a wonderful constitution, and they don't follow it. They don't follow their own constitution. They are all racing for the bottom. They think they've got to outstrip some, the Labor. We have the Labor Party, which is platooned by probably unionists and ex-unionists. We have the Liberal Party for lawyers. We need a party of the people. And this idea, I just want to mention this. I know that many people, as they get around at the last election, are saying, well, the system's corrupt and we're not going to vote. Really? Really? Do you realise how much blood was shed that we might have the vote? A lot of blood was shed that we might actually have a democracy where we can vote. So put this idea out of your head that where we won't vote and you think you're going to get an outcome. Unless you're going to take up arms, it's a waste of time. We've got to vote. vote. We've got to vote smartly. We've got to tell our people if you're a member of any minor conservative party, talk to them. Tell them, hey, listen, guys, get together. I want to see it. I really want to see it. I really want to get representation up here, true representation, and roll back the high level of government that we are over-governed to an extent that is unprecedented in free world around the world. I mean, the UK is pretty bad, okay? The UK is horrible, and some of the European states. But we need to roll it back, and we can have this march. And I love these marches. It's not a march, no. It's a rally. I love the rallies because what happens gives us the opportunity as like-minded people to get together. We can encourage each other. We can make friendships, and it's a good thing. They're not listening to us. They couldn't care less. The media couldn't care less. In fact, I did a protest here many years ago. We just did it up here. And we must have had probably 600 to 700 people, which wasn't a lot. But over there, just on that lawn, they had Adam Bant talking. It was doctors for some obscure nothing. Oh, that's right, doctors for the environment. Yeah, doctors for the environment. They were over there, and they must have had 10 people over there, and the media was all around them. We went over and asked the media, why don't you come up and talk to us? They weren't interested. They weren't interested. And I was talking to a young lady I know who has got a high position in Channel 7, and I asked her, I said, look, why don't you do a story on me? We're friends. She said, I'd love to do a story on you. And I said, why don't you? She said, because I would never ever get on, it will never be aired. It will never be aired. She said, I would be in trouble. And then she said to me, we're not allowed to give you breath. That was her word, not allowed to give you breath. So we don't have fair media, we don't have fair government, but we need to change the government. And slowly, there is change happening in the world, believe me. The UK is going to see this maniac that they've got up there at the moment, Starmer. He's going to go at the next election. You're probably going to see changes in France. There are changes happening around the world. And I'd like to see, we don't have any sort of personal dynamo in Australia like, say, Farage they've got up there, or Trump in America. But change is happening, and it'll depend on you. And honestly, I want to say something else. When you're talking to your friends and your neighbours and that, like, don't stress our extreme points. Otherwise they just put you into the kooky category. Talking about kooky category, I was just talking to a lady, sorry, this is a bit of a diversion. She's an early childhood teacher. I was speaking to her on Thursday night, and she said to me, we don't have stranger danger anymore, we have tricky persons. Tricky persons. And I said, what's a tricky person? Tricky person can be the grandfather, the uncle. You have to, and she said, a tricky person, and we have to tell the children this. If they want to, hug you too much, or get, like, really? So they're trying to turn our society inward against us, and our children against us. There's nothing more natural than a grandfather and uncle giving a little child a hug. And it's a sick world we live in, and we're going to turn it back. So thank you, everyone. I won't keep you a second longer. Yes.
You're talking about honesty, right?
Yes.
Every political party in Australia, including yours, is acting as a company, as you know, under an ABN number registered in America. Until we get a party in Australia that says, fuck this, we are going back under the King, under the Commonwealth, and we're changing back to our original constitution. None of you are going to start, ever.
Well,
the first party that gets up and says you're going to do it, they'll be voted in.
No, they won't. Honestly, we're going to work within the system we've got. You can't, we have a system in place, and if we work within the system to get in there and get representation, change can slowly be made then. And in the meantime, by the absence of voting,
Michael, the system's broken. Absolutely unbelievable.
well, what's the solution? What's the solution? How many more weekends do you want to come out here?
You're acting closely as a country. You're not representing the people. You're representing the people.
Anyway, That's what I believe. That's what I believe the solution is, and that's the solution I've given the last 10 years of my life to do. And I've still got a little bit of oomph in me, even though I'm just touching 70 now. We need to be healthy people. We need to be smart people. We have a system. We have a great country, and honestly, we can march and we can meet forever. Thank you very much. God bless you all. We have a wonderful country. Thank you. Now, let's remember the core tenet of today is that nobody's wrong. We're here to exchange opinions. And Michael, there's a couple of points I'll leverage on, but a bit of what Michael said. Kooky. What's the difference between kooky and cookers? One letter. I've been labelled a cooker for a long time. I don't mind. Kooky, cooker, they're just labels. So, talking about the media and the media not covering the rally, we are the media. That's what we have to remember. We are the media. When my twins were born, we were in Canberra Hospital, and they were locked up. They were 2 weeks preemie, and we got locked in the neonatal intensive thing. And as a dad, there's not much I can do. I got a bit bored. I snuck out. I came down to here to the legalised cannabis rally. And you remember Jenny Hallam? Remember the name Jenny Hallam? She was speaking, and we had a crowd about this size. No media. And I rang up a couple of people I knew up in this house here, and we got Darren Hinch to come out. Well, that brought the media out, didn't it? Just one phone call made the difference. So Jenny Hallam, she'd been arrested. She was making the cannabis oils for the kids with cancer. And then Greg Hunt came out to another rally. There was a cystic fibrosis rally in the other corner. So Jenny Hallam met Greg Hunt. Very impromptu. Jenny Hallam then met Greg Hunt in his parliamentary office that afternoon, because we got some other people come out. It's called amplification. Unscripted, random. I didn't plan to come here. I just turned up because I saw the rally. That's why we do this. I'll give you another quick story, and this one's pulled at me a little bit yesterday, and some people out there will go, that's bullshit, but it ain't. I had to go to Bombali yesterday, and I did a bit of work and had a meeting with one of the community groups I'm a part of.
Is that sideways, folks, or is that right?
I turned onto the highway from the Bombala turnoff, and there's a couple of long straights, and just ahead of me, about a kilometre away, was a white car, half in my lane, pointing at me. Parked, just stopped. That's a 100 zone. And I thought, it's something I've seen before, and it's not something you ever want to see. So I pulled up next to the car and said, oh, how you going? You got a problem? Because a lot of cars break down on the Brown Mountain. There's a young man waiting to drive into a truck. I'll say that again. There was a young man, he was waiting to drive head on into a semi-trailer. So I got him off the road, and I got his car off. We had a chat. He gave me a hug because he wasn't in presence of mind. And I tried to work out what his problem was. A police car turned up. They were actually looking for him. Turns out he was being a shithead through Nimittabel and Cooma. He's doing burnouts, and my wife saw him. The police breathalyzed him, and he was over. Police put him under arrest. Then the policeman walked back to his police car.
Is that better?
And our young friend jumped in, started his car and legged it down the highway. So what could have been avoided with a little bit of smarter thinking by the police turned into a police chase. If anybody knows a young man called Noah from Canberra, mid-20s, with a wife and 2 kids, he was driving a white BMW and is a bit confused in his life, send him a message that there are people that will help you, Noah. You just have to put your hand out. He gave me a hug,
which meant he's reachable. He didn't drive into a truck, which meant he's reachable. But unfortunately, he would have got arrested and chased down the highway. But he's not, he didn't come to harm. I did manage to find that out. Now, it's a bit of a sad story, but reality check. We are here for each other. I know it's raining, it's windy, and we're all getting wet. And it's freezing, but that's, hey, that's Canberra. Yeah, you're coast, sorry. We'll jump on to the next speaker, but there's quite a few topics. So, the issues
We're
Michael
going to head this down so we can fix up this presentation thing.
very viable. And the political contest is a brutal one.